All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and talk about the basic steps we're going to utilize whenever we're analyzing sports skills. So the first thing we're going to do is figure out what's the objective of the skill. What are we trying to do? So if we're throwing a baseball, well, it's the throwing of the ball. We want it to go a certain distance. If we're a pitcher, we want to get it inside of the strike zone, and we want to have it go a certain velocity. It sounds simple, but just make sure we understand what's our end result in mind. From there, we're going to think about any of the special characteristics of the skill. So first, we're going to ask ourselves, are they repetitive or non-repetitive? Repetitive meaning it's cyclical, it's relatively continuous in nature. So this is running, swimming, something we're going to see them doing over and over again. Or is it non-repetitive? So we have a beginning and an end. So we're doing a jump, we're pitching a baseball, we're doing a backflip. Once we've noted that special characteristics of the skill, we want to then figure out, is it going to be predictable or unpredictable? So predictable meaning it's going to always occur in the same fashion. So in theory, if we're pitching that baseball, it should be pretty much the same thing every single time, slight variations on the theme. If we're doing Olympic lifting, we're doing powerlifting, we're going to see a lot of things where we're just going to focus on always performing the same skill. Now, they might be that repetitive, non-repetitive, but at least we know it's coming. Now, unpredictable is what we're going to see in a lot of sport, which is where there's going to be some variability thanks to what our opponents are doing, thanks to what's occurring inside of the sporting endeavor. So obviously blocking in football is going to be a effectively unpredictable skill. There is going to be a lot of variations that's going to happen because of what the athlete's going to go ahead and do. And because of that, yes, you have a non-repetitive skill that's also unpredictable. So we need to make sure we understand there's going to be a certain amount of variability in performance. The third step is we want to look at the performance of really high-level individuals. We want to get an idea for what they're doing as far as timing, rhythm, speed, how different parts of the body are going to move at different points of the movement. Now, keep in mind, we want to look for those mechanicals, those basic underlying principles of what they need to do. Highest level performance in any sport, you're still going to find slight variations on technique, and that's based upon individual differences for things like anthropometrics and otherwise, but you're going to find a lot of reoccurring themes. So if we're talking about lifting, some folks are going to squat with a wider stance, some folks are going to squat with a narrower stance, some folks are going to squat high bar, some folks are going to squat low bar, but none of them are going to be squatting like their back is completely sponsored by the letter C. Much less are they going to be trying to squat where their knees are kissing, folding in. We're going to look for those undeniable reoccurring themes because that's the things we want to go ahead and establish with our athlete. We then want to divide that skill into 4 separate phases. The first phase is the preparatory, mental setup, making sure that they're ready to go. Then we're going to have the windup. Think about pitching. So we're going to go ahead and have that step back. They're going to be then coming forward. We then have the force producing where we're going to go ahead and drive. And then once we let go of the ball, then we're going to have that follow through and recovery. And obviously from there, if you're doing this so where it's a cyclical, we might have them go ahead and go straight from that follow through back into the force producing or the windup. Now, preparation, getting our stance, getting ourselves in our 3-point position, whatever we need to, where we're getting ourselves to go at the very beginning. Wind up. So that's going to be where we're going to be pulling back, the backswing. So we're going to have a little bit of that stretch reflex that we can draw upon for those muscles and allow ourselves to perform a bit better. Our force producing is when we're going to be generating that force. This is going to be involving the whole body. It could involve the run up if we're doing things like a long jump, high jump, or a pole vault. It's going to be our pulling ourselves on through and doing it, and then we have the follow through. So what happens after we let go? Now, sometimes, or quite frequently, it's really not a good thing to try and stop yourself immediately. So if you were to go ahead and swing a baseball bat and then try to stop yourself midway through, you're not going to be able to producing as much speed on the bat. You're not going to be able to hit the ball as hard, and you're going to be doing a lot of real hard eccentric work on your muscle mass, which can hurt yourself, especially for individuals that throw the ball and then immediately try to yank their arm back quickly. That's really, really difficult. So instead, we want to anticipate that force by then allowing ourselves to deaccelerate for a longer period of time. We then have our 5th step, which is now we're going to look at the key elements. So what are going to be the key elements of each of those phases? How do they need to set up? How do they need to rotate the hips? If we're talking about someone swinging a golf club, how do they need to have their arms extended? How do they need to make sure that they have their spine in organization? How their shoulders are going to rotate? How their hips are going to articulate? And so on up and down the chain. And then we want to make sure we understand why we need to cue things in that order. What are the major movement patterns that we want to see, what are the things we want to make sure that they're not doing so they don't hurt themselves. So this is going to allow us to teach the movement correctly and make sure we're giving appropriate cues. And on the next video, we're going to go ahead and talk about what those cues are going to be. Thank you guys for listening. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them below, and have a great day.